Great Debaters Contest is powered by Blaze, by Safaricom, the Youth Network.
Welcome to the home of debate, the Great Debaters Contest, coming to you from Kisumu County. I am your host, Mariam Bishar.
And I am Austin Yumbok. Our motion today is very riveting. Multinational organizations should be liable for human rights abuses that occur anywhere in their supply chain. St. Mary's School YALA going against NIA girls. Mariam, who's going to take it out?
Impossible to tell, Austin. We'll let them answer that for us. First proposer, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, moderator. Now, to my very worthy opponents, warmest regards to my potential judges and to my dearest audience. Now, multinational companies should be held liable for human rights abuses that occur anywhere in the supply chain. I'll take you through the first round from the proposition. I am Wycliffe Otieno. Now, a multinational company is an entity which exercises direct or indirect control, either through subsidiaries or private organizations or majorities on the board of directors in different parts of the world. Examples of multinational companies are FIFA, the Federation International Football Association, the Nestle, Coca-Cola, Apple, Samsung, many more. Now, to be held liable is to be legally held responsible for paying something. Human rights abuses, on the other hand, is the unfair, cruel, or violent treatment of fundamental human rights, such as rights of expression, rights to pay, right for work, right for better pay, right for good work conditions. Now, the supply chain state is the state of process involved in the production and supply of goods or services from where they are first made, their manufacture, or until they are finally used. Now, none of us here are really naive to think that corporations care about anything but profit. That's why they're corporations, after all. I mean, they're not charities. The multinational companies themselves are the ones that stamp all over human rights in exchange for a quick buck. Extortion, murders, human rights abuses. Come on, slavery. It turns out that there is nothing really that these companies want to do in the name of the almighty dollar. Now, foremost, the multinational companies have a duty to protect its workers or laborers from servitude and slavery. This is stated in the International Labor Organization, ILO, which reveals that, onto facts, nearly 21 million people worldwide are victims of forced labor, which almost 90.48% of this number, that is 19 million, of these victims are exploited by business firms. This accounts for half of the cases of human rights abuses or violations. These multinational companies are stamping on our human rights. Who are there to blame? They are breaching the Standard Development Goals. Number 8, decent work. Now, who are we to blame for this? Do you want to blame other parties? No. The right thing to do is to blame the multinational companies. We can also look at this way. Now, the multinational companies have a duty to account for health-related hazards. Look at it this way. The multinational companies, they have the mandate to, they have a duty to account from pollution, environmental pollution. Now, failure to this results to violating of existing human rights. What should we do when they violate our human rights? We should hold them liable. Take an example of the December 1984 catastrophe at Bhopal in India, caused by the release of a lethal gas known as methyl isocyanate, known from a chemical plant, Union Carbide, which is a multinational company that resulted in the deaths of over 2,000 persons and in the injuries of 200,000 people. Who are to blame? The multinational companies. Thank you.
Okay, Nia Girls, you have 3 minutes to make your opening statements.
Call me Wasonga Emma Jaber from Nia Girls High School. And I am here to counter our opponents who say that multinational companies are supposed to be held responsible for all the human rights abuses that take place within their supply chain. But my one question is, why apportion blame? Why is it that we want to attack these multinational companies for these atrocities that occur? If you asked me, I would say that would be like cutting a tree at the stem, and resultantly later on, it will come about and sprout again. And so what am I trying to say? That attacking these companies directly would be, to me, a waste of time. Actually, what we ought to be doing is to attack the main enemy. And who is the main enemy in this case? look in the mirror. We are the main enemy. The society is, in my view, to blame for all these human rights abuses that are taking place. I do counseling, and according to the little knowledge I know about counseling, then a human being's behavior is mainly influenced by his background. It comes from his environment. And these people who are committing these atrocities are part of our society. They are human beings just like us. And I would say that it has been ingrained in them that abusing human rights abuses is actually a possible way. It is a way of making profits. Let us take, for instance, from back then when our grandfathers used to work for the whites. Someone would be made to do a lot of work for little pay. And so, as the children, the grandchildren, future generation, we may come up knowing or thinking that actually you can make someone work and pay them poorly and go scot-free, make your profit. Another way of looking at it is that consider the case of child labor. When you have a small boy, take for instance, a boy 15 years old approaches you as an employer, and this boy is starving. No home, no parents. That is not a rare spectacle in our society today. And he asks you for help. On one hand, there's the option of giving him a job. But what is that? In our society, it is considered as child labor. On the other hand, you need to help this person. After all, I want to believe we are humane. And so my point is that there is a greater enemy, and we are the problem. What is this child supposed to do? He has been born to a society which is full of poverty. What are we as a society doing about the levels of poverty? What are we as a society doing about the mindset of human beings, the mindset of employers in this current society? I posit that in attacking multinational companies, yes, they are to blame. Yes, they have a hand in it, but that is missing the point. Thank you.
Cross-examinations now. St. Mary's YALA, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, our other opponents. I wish to recognize the presence of very special guests amongst our audience. That is reason and common sense. I believe they're with us today. Now, our opponents here talked about the society being to blame. That part of the society, who are the multinational companies, are part of the blame why the abuse of human rights is taking place. Now, we do not in any way dispute what our opponents are saying. All we are saying is that multinational companies should be held liable for the abuse of human rights that occur anywhere in the supply chain. There is no solution you're bringing by putting the blame on the entire society. We're looking at the root cause of the problem, which is the multinational companies. Now, the Kenya Films and Classifications Board, led by Ezekiel Mutua, recently banned an ad by Coca-Cola Company showing explicit scenes of passionate kissing. This was a wave by the Kenya Films and Classification Board meant at trying to bring together the fabrics of society. Now, our society is rooted on norms, morality, etiquette, decorum. What was a 5-year-old who was watching the ad supposed to think? In this case, multinational companies should indeed be held liable for the abuse of human rights that occur anywhere in the supply chain. Now, Samsung Galaxy Note 7 2016 edition, a very profound project by the Samsung company, was reported to have reported 6 cases of blowing up. Now, customers using the Samsung Galaxy Note 7 got injuries. Others even lost their lives. In this world, it is important to realize that time and life are the 2 resources that can never be recovered once lost. Now, lives have been lost already. Why waste time trying to apportion blame to people who are not concerned? Multinational companies should be held liable for the abuse of human rights that occur anywhere in the supply chain. Thousands of factory workers across the globe, approximately 21 million, according to statistics from the UN, state that forced labor brings about loss of lives, brings about wounds, injuries, maims. Now, Tim Cook, CEO of Apple Incorporated, in a recent launch of iPhone 4S at their company headquarters in California, admitted that the company was using forced labor. Forced labor. Thousands of Chinese factory workers will be given the chance to detail the punishment conditions on assembly lines producing Apple iPods and iPhones. Now, why exactly are we wasting time? Instead of apportioning the blame to the parties concerned, let us also remember that to him who much is given, much is expected. To Steady Joseph on stage, thank you.
Nia Girls, you have 3 minutes for your rebuttal.
This is Matilda Ching from Nia Girls High School. I would like to ask you one question. Why should we waste much of our time pointing fingers of one another instead of looking at the sources of where these problems are coming from, which comes back and draws back to our court as the members and the people in that country? And to my first point, the multinational companies should not be made liable for abuse of human rights because they've managed to lobby for favorable legislations and have influenced the course of the law, thanks to the gall of our lawmakers. Why am I saying this? Let us look at the Tobacco Bill of 2011, which was the Ministry of Health against the British American tobacco. What happened? These people actually took our parliamentarians to posh hotels in Mombasa, and when they came back, the bill was not pushed through. Who took the advantage? The British American tobacco. What am I saying? These politicians are chosen by us, who are the members of that country. So it is up to us to choose leaders who will be able to stand for what is right. And to my second point, multinational companies are under a social contract to go by the laws governing a country. The problem comes in when a country has weak laws. Why am I saying this? Let's take an example of tobacco law. In Kenya, the legislation does not cover for other products of tobacco, such as the electric cigarettes and shisha. Unlike Uganda, which has banned all tobacco products, including the shisha and electric cigarettes. So it is up to us, as members of that nation, to ensure that we make laws that will not give room for rights to be abused as members of that place. So what am I trying to say? It is us who live within that place to take responsibility. Do not allow a foreigner come in and take charge of something that is initially yours, something that does not belong to them. They are within your state. Hence, they have the right and obligation to follow what is already there. It is up to us to choose whether they're going to take control of us or whether we are going to limit or take responsibility of telling them and giving them the direction of what to do and what not to do. That's the same way I am a principal of a certain school. Why should an outsider come in and teach me how to carry on, how to take charge of my school? It is up to me and the people within the society, and the ones who have the right and are rightfully there to take charge as members or people who own that place and not beginning to throw fingers at one another. The question should be, what are we doing to be able to dig out these things from the roots, not trying to leave the branches that actually finally sprout back? What will we be gaining at the end of the day? What will happen after 15 years? No change. As much as they'll be abusing our rights and we'll keep taking them to court, everything happened will not have solved anything. With that, I rest my case.
Thank you very much. The proposition I've been asked if things such as watching kissing scenes on TV amounts to human rights abuses, and the opposition have been asked about instances such as that of a company that was emitting lead into the atmosphere. Does that not constitute to a human rights abuse? We'll have them respond to those queries now. Third proposer, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, my dear people, for giving this opportunity to answer the question posed by my audience. I didn't quite get your name, but rather, I did get your question. And the kind of right that is abused at that particular situation is right to social and cultural belief. I hope you're clear. You do have a right to believe in something, both culturally and socially. Now, there are 17 goals. 17 goals take the whole world to Eden. But there's only one snake in Eden. MNCs, multinational companies. And My first proposal stated some examples of multinational companies. For instance, there's Nestle, there's FIFA. Now, let's look at these multinational companies one by one and break them. After all, the snake has to be crushed by the head. Nestle is a global multinational company with only one goal: to get cheap quality labor from children. It was discovered recently in 2001 that it was employing 6,000 children to work in the Ivory Coast farms of cocoa and coffee. And since the government had no oversight in them, when they realized that they were doing this, they stopped? We hope so, but no. Up to date, children are dying. One day, 2 children are dying per week because of the adverse conditions that even Adolf Hitler would describe those conditions as being very harsh. FIFA, this international multinational corporation that deals with grown men kicking balls in a Abadi stadium, that it's globally known. You probably heard that on 2022, FIFA charged Qatar or placed the bestowment to Qatar to build a multinational stable and to hold the 2022 World Cup. Now in Qatar, there are immigrants moving from Nepal. And these Nepalese are exposed to adverse conditions that you're supposed to work for 50 degrees Celsius Fahrenheit with no access to water, food, and if you protest, you're being beaten. How many human rights have there been abused there? Think about it. And what did FIFA do about it? They pocketed, stood there, and ignored the situation. And lives are lost. Seriously, the MNCs are the snakes we have to take us to these 17 development goals produced by UN to the SDGs. But the MNCs are the ones coming in our way. Consider that. Consider that. Adversely, if I may put this into a clear state, there are 2 things in life: life itself and time. Once life, an abuse of human life has been implemented on someone, it can never be replaced. It stays within you. And once time is gone, it can never replace. Children, extortion, murder, there's nothing that MNCs will not do for the almighty dollar. On the stage was Jiral Abok, proposing the motion that MNCs, the snakes in Eden, should be held liable. Thank you.
Ladies, you have 3 minutes to respond to the audience.
Sandra Presi, school, near Girls High School. Purpose, to respond avidly to the question which was raised, and hence to second my mates in opposing the motion. So the question was, if the issue in Mombasa should be liable to the multinational government. Well, no. Why? Because the government should be liable. The government has agencies which take care of these issues, agencies such as NEMA and ETC. Now, back to the motion. I'm bemused by the fact that our proposition team cannot be able to score according to the motion. Instead, they're victimizing and only focusing on the victimization of these multinational governments. Well, to my proposers, food for thought. My first point is multinational companies should not be held liable because at the end of the day, we are going to gain from them. What do I mean? When we, as a country, decide to partner with this multinational government, then we expect development funds from them. We're not just going to divert this story that at the end of the day, they are to be blamed. No, we are going to gain from them. We are speaking about substantial development funds, substantial development goals at the end of the day. Gaining from them simply means we're going to get funds from them. We're going to depict funds, and these are going to help our country in terms of structure, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of premises, and also institutions. Secondly, of course, human is to err. We'll not dismiss the fact that these companies have errors in them, yes, but we'll not focus on this part only. We'll not focus on the fact that they have errors, no. Instead, we'll also look at the good sides. These multinational companies, for your information, also are a source of employment. Look at the Coca-Cola company. Look at the laborers working under the Coca-Cola company. Aren't they many? They are. Look at FIFA. The people working under FIFA, aren't they many? They are. And therefore, this is employment. At the end of the day, we need this in our country. We need this employment to make our country grow, which is an example of a sustainable development fund, growth of jobs, that is decent jobs, and economic growth at the end of the day. We need this. We need this multinational government, this multinational company not to take responsibility. They should not be liable, because at the end of the day, who will employ these people? Where will our country go at the end of the day? If we say that they're liable, they will deploy people. Your parents, some of our parents work in these companies at the end of the day. And we want to say that they'll deploy people. Where will food on the table come from? Nowhere. Will you even be in school? No. Simply because there'll not be employment. And we cannot just focus on one point. We will not blame fingers. We'll not point fingers at people. No. Instead, we'll also look at the other side, the positive side of it. Well, those once a pioneer who say that the buck stops there. And I will tell all of us, the buck stops there with Sandra Press.
Final statements now. St. Mary's, you have 1 minute.
Dearest audience, a scholar once wrote that the hardest truth is better than the sweetest words, even from the prettiest lips. Now, acquitting multinational companies of this liability and instead holding the society liable is like staying in the middle of the road. We all know what happens to those who stay in the middle of the road, yeah? They get knocked down. Now, the opposition are like trying to sit on a man's back. They are hurting this man, forcing him to carry him. And then they tell you, and then they tell themselves that they feel sad for him and that they want to help him in any way that they can. In any way that they can, but to get off his back. Now, we think birds in cages are crying, but in reality, these birds, we think birds in cages are singing, but in reality is that these birds are crying. If you're still in the delusion that the society is to blame for violations of human rights that are perpetrated by these multinational companies, then don't let me lose you in this 1 minute. Please, this 1 minute will matter. Travel with me, for they say travel is a part of learning. Multinational companies are to be held liable. Thank you.
Yeah, girls, you have 1 minute for your final statement.
Well, I'm back again to the podium. I am a sophisticated and stylish lady of very few words, and the words that have been said here surely make sense. So, the question here today is, are we going to blame the multinational government or the multinational companies? Are we going to point blames on them? No. Are we going to blame the government? No. What is the solution? What are the solutions? The solution is within the society. If we are able to educate the society, enable them to know the importance of their rights, to enable them to know the importance of having, or the importance of having these laws in the society which will guide them, that is where we'll head as a country. That is where we'll head as a society. But if we sit down, point fingers, blame people, then there is no solution. And unlike what our opposers have done, unlike what our proposers have done, they've come here, they've said their points. Good. But have they given us solutions? They've not. Well, here are our solutions. I am Sandra Pressy, once again.
Wycliffe, we want to commend you especially for getting us to the temple of the debate, and that is what the rest picked on. That was so good, so passionate, and we want to commend you for quoting precisely the sources of your quotes, and especially for the mention of the SDGs, as already mentioned, and the nice conclusion. Teddy, the Coca-Cola ad and its issue on morality. We did not see why you're saying there is a question about it, so you did not give us the very picture that makes you keep a mention about the Coca-Cola ad, though you were very specific about what has been done, which is so important about what has already been done to add to your point. It is quite convincing and powerful in the manner you presented, and we want to commend you. Rabok, your analogy of the snake, that was quite hilarious, and the statistical research that you put into it added to the glamour of your presentation, and especially your side.
Tungia girls, Emma, that was a very good start. You're also a very good speaker. And I think the first time that you started your team off by telling us that there are alternatives, that there are greater enemies like poverty and child labor, that was a good start on the direction that you guys were taking. Very good angle to take as well. Matilda, I think you stand out for me. I think you were read. That's one thing that was very outstanding for you. Good submissions. We talk about weak laws and even give examples of them, and very passionate, and that was very commendable of the mastery of topic. Sandra, good tackling of questions as well, very good speaker as well, and the advantages that outweigh the disadvantages, example that you were trying to bring forth, that was very commendable. So to both teams, that was a good fight. All the best.
St. Mary's School YALA, the judges awarded you 71%. Please give them a round of applause. And here, girls, the judges saw it fit to award you 74%. You're our winners for the debate.
Congratulations, ladies, and of course a job well done to the gentlemen. That was a wonderful, very riveting debate. Thank you to our studio audience and those of you at home for watching. Remember to give us your feedback. Our hashtag is GDC for SDGs. I am Mariam Bishar.
And I am Austin Nyumbok. Catch you next time.
The Great Debaters Contest is powered by Blaze, by Safaricom, the Youth Network.